Hi, my name is Matthew Bellisario. Thanks for coming by the BellisarioSonic YouTube channel from the outskirts of Birmingham, Alabama, where I talk about records, do record reviews, do interviews, and more. I appreciate you guys coming by the channel, supporting all these wonderful jazz artists and independent record labels, which is what I really focus on this channel. And I've gotten a lot of great new records in that I've been reviewing, both on vinyl and on CD, as you guys know. So go back and check out my playlist, my vinyl record jazz playlist, my CD playlist where I have all these reviews, and you can check those out and also go to the conversations. Today I want to talk about something that I found very interesting. I recently had a wonderful conversation with recording engineer, mixing engineer, and mastering engineer Sheldon Zaharko, which you will see coming this Sunday. So please schedule it, watch it, give the thumbs up, leave your comments on it, because this is very interesting stuff when it comes to why do CDs sound different than vinyl records? What goes into the making of these records? Well, I started thinking about all this the other day, and this album here was one of the subjects of our conversation because Sheldon recorded this, mixed and mastered it. And when I was talking to him about it, I was like, the CD sounds different than the vinyl record. I started talking to him about it, and he goes, you know what? On this one, the mixing, the recording, mixing, and mastering were exactly the same for both of these, for the CD and for the record. Now, when I listened to these, I thought the record sounded different. Not only different, but I thought it sounded better. And I started thinking about this, and I was like, well, there's a couple of different factors, and he brought up some of them, like the highest resolution file was sent to cut this record. So that would be taking that high resolution file, cutting it to the lacquer. You're going to have a direct transfer from that high bit rate onto the vinyl. It's maybe give it a better sound than the that same file being brought down to a 16-bit for the CD. Could be one thing that might cause it to sound different. But another thing that came to mind after I got through talking with him was the whole RIAA curve. And I started thinking about this, and I was like, you know what? I think this also has an effect on why records just sound different than CDs. And even though they're the same mix, the same master in this case, they do sound different. The drums sound better on here. They're more resonant. I think it has a bit of a warmer sound than this has. Even though sometimes maybe I hear this sounds a little quieter. Overall, like the noise floor might be a little quieter. If I crank it up, I don't hear the little bit of that noise floor that I'll hear on the record, but the record still has this resonance to it that the CD does not have, in my opinion. So why is that the case? The higher file bit rate may be one of those things, and of course the process of cutting it to the lacquer and then making the record. But I think another factor is when it gets converted. So the whole RIAA curve I just want to talk about today. You guys leave your comments, let me know what you think about this theory. And this is one of the other things I think why a record always sounds different. The RIAA curve was established in 1954. On the record itself, the songs are cut into this record at microscopic levels. It's really an amazing thing that this thing with all these little tiny grooves in here can play back and give us such an outstanding sound. But one of the problems is you have to cut the low frequencies when you're cutting this record, and you boost the high frequencies the same amount, 20 dB on each end. And there's a couple of reasons for this. And the standard that it was decided on in 1954 was done because everybody was using their own different equalization curves, and it became a problem for playback. 1940, you had over 100 different combinations of different roll-off frequencies and so forth. So the 1954 RIAA curve that was set was something done to rectify that issue. But this right here is really I think affects the sound. And obviously, when you cut that low frequency, there's a couple of reasons you're going to do that, right? So you're going to reduce the bass because of the grooves. The more bass you have, the higher volume, the wider this groove is going to have to be. And that's just a general rule. So when you cut that bass down, when you're cutting it, it has to be boosted back up through your phono stage, right? And the opposite happens on the high end. Now on the low end, it's important not only for space, but it's also important that the tracking at these low frequencies would become very difficult to track with a stylus in that groove. It would be very hard for manufacturers to make something that would track well. So when you cut that at a lower volume, the bass, you're going to get a different sound on the low end, in my opinion, when it turns around and goes through your phono stage and boosts it back up to 20 dB. Now, the opposite happens on the other end. And this is done for a purpose as well, because when you're tracking at high frequencies on that record, you have a tendency to get a lot of noise on that. You can get a little bit of dirt on your stylus that will greatly affect the high end. And the sound quality would be greatly diminished, and the noise floor would be very high if they didn't boost those. So what they're doing is boosting it coming in on the record. It's cut, boosted. But what happens is it gets turned around and lowered 20 dB on your phono stage. That's going to reduce some noise on the high end that you would get had it not done that. So my opinion, or my theory here, is that when it goes through this process through your phono stage, you're getting a different sound. And it's because of this process. And I think, in my opinion, it's one of, again, a theory, that process of this conversion gives the drums a more resonant sound. I think you get the highs off the cymbals sound different. They sound warmer. I think there's more resonance off the drums. I always hear a big difference on the drums, and not as much as I'll hear on a trumpet or a saxophone or something like that. And of course, that's going to depend on, I think, where those instruments fall in the frequency of that RIAA curve. So let me know what you guys think. And this is where your phono stage is so important in the sound that you get through your system, because yes, your cartridge matters, your turntable matters, everything in the path matters, but when it comes out of your turntable, then it goes into that phono stage, 3 things have to happen. It's got to get that RIAA curve done, and that's set. It's pretty much a standard curve there. That phono stage has to turn everything around, and then it has to amplify it, and all that is amplified out to a line level. So it's a lot of work that phono stage has to do. And when I upgraded from my Shit Money 2 to my Vincent Faux 701, it was a noticeable difference. And I'm still not anywhere near of what a top of the line phono stage would be, nor am I at the top of the line for my turntable. I'm using an Audiphile Blue cartridge with a Fluence RT85, which is a mid-fi turntable. But when I added that Vincent, when I changed it out, it really helped my sound. It sounds more, it sounds a really nice, bigger sound stage. There's more depth, more warmth, more clarity. It's just a better phono stage. And also, there's a separation between the power supply and the actual amplifier itself. It's connected with a DIN cable. And as you guys, I'll show you here, I've got the Vincent Faux 701. Here is the amplifier itself. There's a DIN cable that connects back under this table here, and it goes over to the power supply on the other side, so they're nowhere near each other. And that's also important for cutting down on noise. But that's another issue for another day. The whole point of this video is that this equalization done by the RIAA curve and the work that your phono stage has to do, the way that it's cut on the record this way, and the way that those frequencies, the way that the needle vibrates on that record and comes through your turntable and gets turned around through your phono stage to your speakers, or in my case, I'm using Yamaha HS8 speakers, which are powered speakers, or whether it goes to your receiver or amplifier that goes to your speakers. That chain is different than it would be with a CD, and it doesn't matter whether it was mixed, mastered, the same exact way like it was done on this. Doesn't matter. It still sounds different. And it's this whole process of how the record is made, but also I think this RIAA curve is an integral part of why a record sounds different and often, in my opinion, sounds better and more natural, in my opinion, than the CD. Leave your comments. Let me know what you guys think about my theory here, and we will talk soon. Stay tuned for more reviews, and happy listening to everybody out there. Take care.